Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Welcome back to Newsflash. We are ready to go. White House is trying to tamp down trade fears as China retaliates in the early stages of what is a trade conflict, I guess you could say. The right-wing media are looking at the Parkland students and seeing a reason to cut public education. What a surprise. How John Bolton wants to destroy the Constitution to attack North Korea. Why he's manipulating the exact words of the Constitution to make it easier for his political goals. That's all today in what is going to be a fun show. As always, coming back first day off the break. Vacation is in the books. That was a great time, as you know, if you listen to the Spencer Walsh Show episode from episode 170. We were in Puerto Rico, so obviously I want you to go check that out. Great time in Puerto Rico. Great, very chill place. Very nice food. Very nice people. Very nice everything. So yeah, highly recommend if you go back down there, pump some money in the economy. And if you look at my YouTube channel in the next few days, we will have a video up for you about my time in Puerto Rico. That'll be coming out soon. All right, so yeah, now we move down to the White House. They're trying to tamp down some trade war fears as China retaliates. It's very interesting, really quite amazing. I looked on the plane, and before I went on the plane to come back here yesterday, China and the U.S. were just going at it. The stocks were tanking. Then Larry Kudlow comes out and says something, and the stocks, boom, right back up. And hey, that's why we chose you, Larry. That's what all the Goldman people said, and because he is a former CNBC guy. He really, he saw his buddies at the stock market. They were probably calling him. They're like, "Oh, Larry, what are we gonna do?" And he's like, "I got this." And then, bam, things are back to normal. So it did rebound. Stocks did rebound earlier in the day. So yeah, the White House officials quickly on Wednesday moved to calm fears of a potential trade war with China, saying the administration proposed tariffs were a threat that would ultimately help, not hurt, the United States economy. Hours after China said it would punish American products with similar tariffs, the administration's insistence that a trade war was not imminent came as the United States and China traded tit-for-tat penalties that caused wild swings in the stock market from Hong Kong to New York. They were both the Hong Kong Trading Center and New York. They were both pretty effective. I believe it's Nikkei, if I'm not mistaken, led by more audacious leaders than either country has had in decades. China and the United States are now locked in a perilous game of chicken, with the possibility to derail the global economy recovery, disrupt international supply chains, and destabilize the huge yet debt-laden Chinese economy. So this is a very high stakes, this trade war, just to say the least. White House officials reiterated on Wednesday that China must stop the unfair trading practices President Trump has believed has disadvantaged American companies and workers, but they held out the possibility that tariffs on $50 billion worth of Chinese goods outlined on Tuesday might never go into effect. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Larry Kudlow, Trump's new top economic advisor, said on an interview with Fox Business Network, he said, "There's no trade war here." He described the threat of tariffs as just the first proposal. He's a diehard free trader. He does not like this tariff thing. He's coming in to try and calm Trump down on this. He says, "I understand the stock market's anxiety, but on the other hand, don't overreact." So he's pretty much telling the stock market to calm down on that. And that, from his CNBC chair, did not have a lot of power, but coming from his position as the National Economic Advisor, facepalm right there, that does have some significantly more power. All right, so yeah, behind the scenes, however, though, top officials remained split over the administration's approach as the United States and China move into a period of high-stakes negotiations. That includes how far to go in punishing China and the types of concessions the White House should accept to avoid a protracted and damaging trade war. People familiar with the negotiations say Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, and Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary, have at times argued for more dialogue with the Chinese and quicker concessions that would help diminish the trade deficit. The gap between what China ships what China ships to the United States and what America ships in the other direction. Other top trade advisors like China critics Robert Lighthizer and Peter Navarro have taken a tougher stance, arguing that the changes will do little to address the mercantilist and protectionist trade policies China has adopted for decades. So, yeah, and they seem to have been working because this is one of his Donald Trump's most effective campaign strategies. He really hammered this point home, and it was very effective to that degree. So he was able to push on China, and people liked it because a lot of middle class people, they're like, hey, this is the problem that I'm dealing with too. So I like it. I like him if he can fix something about it and do something about it. So Trump's advisor said the president remains resolute. I mean, maybe not crater the economy over it. That would be nice, but still. Trump's advisor said the president remains resolute and views the pugilistic approach as the only way to force China to end over 2 decades of industrial policies that have hollowed out the American manufacturing and resulted in a ballooning trade deficit. On Wednesday, Trump suggested in a tweet that he saw no reason to back down since the United States was already on the losing end of a trade war with China. Losing end of trade with China. We are not in a trade war with China. That war was lost many years ago by the foolish, incompetent people who represented the U.S. He wrote, now we have a trade war of $500 billion a year with intellectual property theft of another $300 billion. We cannot let this continue, he tweets out. So he said, also added another tweet, when you're already $500 billion down, you can't lose. And so, yeah, that's probably, I mean, I don't know how much of that is people inside his White House like Peter Navarro and Robert Lighthizer, the pro-trade war guys, trying to rile him up almost in a way, get him more behind this trade war, because I'm sure, just like most things, he's probably swinging like wildly back and forth on this. But yeah, it remains clear that China will bend to the pressure and make significant changes to its economy. Unclear whether they will bend to the pressure, very unclear, or whether the White House strategy will instead tip the two nations into a trade war that could harm both countries. Producers of American goods, soybeans, pork, automobiles, and semiconductors depend on access to the Chinese market for both exports and production, and they say are fearful about a conflict. Companies are definitely caught in the middle of this. Kenneth Jarrett, the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, said economists predict that the direct effect of tariffs will be relatively small for China and the United States since they apply to only a fraction of the country's economic output. It's hardly a life-threatening activity, Ross said in an interview with CNBC. He added that the volume of the tariffs was in line with the White House's calculation that the Chinese have cheated the United States out of $50 billion worth of intellectual property through coercion and cyber attacks. So, like, they have been playing very, very aggressive, China has, with the United States. So it's going to be very interesting to see where he comes down on this, how hard they go on this, and if they will be willing if they will be willing to continue on this, even though it's not very big and it doesn't, like, they're going after like random things like wine, like pork or whatever. And there was like a interview yesterday with like some hog farmer on CNN. Don't yell at me. I watch CNN, but only because like we were like in taxi and it was on, and that's what it was on. So like ran around like 3:00. And they're like, don't let the United States become a trade war. Don't let the hog farmers in the United States become a casualty of this trade war. And that could be very interesting. He's saying like if a Democrat comes in and portrays this right, like he only cares about, like, just say he screwed you. He screwed you to get back at China. He took away your profits to get back at China. I mean, would they be enraged about that? I guess there's a lot of middle class people who may want to try and come in and switch their votes. But if the Democrat comes in there, plays them right, brings up all these economic factors, all these places where in the populist rhetoric that he's promising the campaign trail, he's been all talk but no bite, announcing again, and this is another piece of news, that he's planning to stay in Syria again. So yeah, that's the problem. That's another big problem there. Like, why is he going to stay in Syria? This is not cool. Yeah, so that's definitely a little bit worrying. Yeah. Anyway, so what the tariffs would affect though it's a small part of the overall United States economy. They impinge on a relatively large share of American exports to China. If China places tariffs on the $50 billion in goods from the United States as promised, that would be more than 1/3 of American exports to China. In contrast, American tariffs on $50 billion of Chinese goods would affect only 1/10 of China's vast amount of exports to the United States. So pretty much what they're doing is tariffing, if that's even a word, placing tariffs on pretty much all of what they send to China, but not a lot of their broader U.S. economy. China is placing tariffs on $50 billion of goods from the United States. That would be more than 1/3 of American exports to China. So it's quite a little bit of difference. It's quite a difference in margin there. So you have to also, when you come in and you look at this, you also kind of have to look at where the tariffs are coming from in that point of view. Like, is there more, who's putting more emphasis, who's going out of their way more to try and hurt the other's economy? So, like, that's another, when deciding blame and who maybe, like, won the trade war or something, or who's most at fault for it, this can be very interesting to look into. So the economic effects could, though, also quickly escalate beyond tariffs. The United States is preparing restrictions that could prevent China from investing in high-tech industries like semiconductors and electric vehicles, and also may consider other restrictions, including visas, if it goes further. So, like, it could make it harder for Chinese people, on top of all the other people, to immigrate into this country. China, in return, could make life more difficult for many American companies that do business in the country or pare back its purchases of United States debt. China is the largest foreign holder of American debt, about $1.17 trillion of U.S. bonds, notes, and bills in January, according to the Treasury Department. Eswar Prasad, who's a professor of international trade at Cornell University, says China has many ways it can make life exceedingly difficult and uncomfortable for a large number of American businesses, both those who are hoping to for access to China's fast expanding market, and those that use China as an important part of their supply chains. So, yeah, they can really hurt American businesses. And so pretty much to sum it all up here, Trump is picking a fight for something that wasn't too much of a big deal and wasn't too much of a problem, was something only on the far-right Republican fringe, like the Steve Bannon types, that they really, really want him to do. And in the end, it's also hurting many, many American businesses, from the hog farmers to the fancy supply chain guys who use China as their supply chain. So he's picking a fight with China, biggest holder of American debt. That's also going to hurt our economy in another way. And the fact that there will be tariffs on many goods that many middle class white working class voters produce. Like, these voters, I bet all these people who are going to be hurt in the hog business and other white working class businesses that they like farming businesses, manufacturing businesses. So what I mean by that, they will also be hurt by this tariffs. If you look at the map of like the highest producing states, there's some things that Trump is putting tariffs on. A lot of those states that are being tariffed the most are going to be in Trump's sweet spot, the white working middle class. So it's pretty much picking a fight that'll end up hurting him in the end, and end up hurting America really in more ways than one. This is the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. Your show will return in just 4 minutes.
Hendo on the beat.